Back home for the first of 4 games, started with the matchup against the visiting New Orleans Pelicans, the third-seeded team out of the West. Wizards had a pretty decent first quarter, but it was that second quarter where things took a turn. Unfortunately, the Wizards unable to climb back into the lane that they wanted to be. That would be the victory lane. The final score, 132-112. Wizards lose by 20. Welcome to Postgame Live. I am Wes Hall with Jason Smith. We'll be joined by Chris, Drew, and Megan in a moment. Of course, hearing from head coach Wes Unseld Jr. as well. Sticks, I'm going to leave this one open to you. You heard me just mention that second quarter scoring. That's where I want to focus. We'll do that later. Where do you want to focus right now?
Well, there's a lot of different places that we could focus.
Fair.
We could talk about turnovers, points off turnovers. We could go for points in the paint. It just wasn't the Wizards' night tonight, and I think they kind of got caught off guard. That first quarter, great first quarter, 37 points out the gate. But then after that, turnovers. Pelicans were playing hands in the passing lanes. They were getting out in transition. They were taking advantage of basically getting turnover turned into points for them, and that's just the story of the game. Valanciunas was a monster down there in the post, and I thought that the Wizards kind of got hit, and hit again. I think they have to take the video, learn from it, because this is an upper echelon Pelicans team. They're a Western Conference team. They were leading the Western Conference, but now they're third. They had a couple bad losses to quality opponents, but regardless of who is out there on any given night, there was no Zion Williamson, there was no Ingram. Still, the Wizards, they went out there, they fought till the end, just wasn't their night on home.
I'm looking at the first half stats, and I see from 3, we're 6 for 13, 46% there. I have no problem with that. 4 for 4 from the free throw line, though.
Yes.
Should have gotten to the free throw line a little bit more with that. What was it about Valanciunas and defending him? What lesson did we learn when you see a big guy like that? What can we take from the matchup of someone like that?
Well, if you're a big, you're taking up the space, and Valanciunas does that very, very well. He's trying to get out there in the post, and he's taking up the space. He's not getting pushed off of his mark on the block, and he's going out there. He has one of the best shot fakes. The man only jumps 2 inches off the ground, but he goes out there and he's effective. He's strong as anything. He gets rebounds. He has long arms, and he's sitting at the front of the rim for when C.J. McCollum's driving the lane, missing free throws, missing layups, missing jump shots. He's getting the rebound and putbacks for and ones, if not 2 points as well.
So how do we deal with him the next time we see him? Because we will be seeing the Pelicans, I don't even think it's like even 10 days later on this month. How do we slow that down the next time we see him? Because next time, it's going to be down in their house.
We got to learn from it. Do your work early. In transition, go out there and get the job done. Make him make contact at the free throw line. Let him feel you. And by the way, stay out of foul trouble. You saw Daniel Gafford get 2 quick fouls. Taj Gibson got 2 quick fouls. They didn't do their work early, and you got to stay away from the ticky-tack fouls. He is great of going there and ripping his arms through and getting fouls.
Sticks, I appreciate that breakdown. I want to bring in Chris and Drew right now to get their thoughts on it. Obviously, Chris, we wish the Wizards could have delivered a birthday present for you. Unfortunately,
it's all good.
Yeah, I was going to say it's all good. I'm just glad to see that you're enjoying another day. But
we got up some cookies.
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, matter of fact, speaking of cookies, Drew, give me something sweet to think about from this game, because a 20-point loss, that's hard to deal with. But I want something good to move in for Wednesday.
Yeah, well, halftime is made in our league to make adjustments and figure it out and go out there and carry out those adjustments, correcting the correctables. And tonight they didn't do that. They had 10 turnovers in the first half. Guess how many had in the second half? 10 turnovers for 20. And they scored. They capitalized on all of those turnovers. Almost 40 points equated in those 20 turnovers. 74 points in the paint. I'm not even going to – that is an illusion, because a lot of those points in the paint were after layups, after turnovers, and easy scores. And in that second quarter, only having 19 points. Hey, listen, if you're gonna give up a lot of buckets, if you're not gonna get consecutive stops, you're gonna have to score the ball. You're gonna have to put the ball in the hole, and they did that. They shot a good enough percentage tonight, 50% from the field, over 40% from the three, but you did not give yourself a chance. You shot yourself in the foot. Instead of shooting the ball at the rim, turn the ball over.
I'm concerned about something that I saw against Oklahoma City, and I thought it was just going to be on the back end of a road trip. The Wizards would take care of it. But, guys, in these last 2 games against Oklahoma City and tonight against New Orleans, they have committed 40 turnovers. The opposition has scored 71 points off of those. You got to clean that up. You're not going to give yourself a chance at all in this league if you keep turning the basketball over the way that they have. And listen, again, offensively, you score 112 points. Remember, the Wizards jumped out. It was 10-0. Willie Green called a timeout. After that, it was all Pels, led by Valanciunas, and then C.J. McCollum got going, and then the requisite others did their part. But again, my analysis is very simple tonight. Don't turn the basketball over.
And you're going to see this team again coming up here shortly, and I like what Stick said. You got to do your work early when you're playing against Valanciunas. I like to see guys fight him off the block, move him out there. You could push in his back, get him away as far as you can possible from that restricted area, whether it's meeting him at the free throw line in transition when he's a rim runner or jumping in and white in front of him in the post, making them have to throw it over the top and then collapse and double team him. That's what they did against Porzingis, and it was highly effective.
And think about this. Wednesday night, you're going to see Nikola Vucevic, who does, guess what?
Exact
same thing.
Exact same thing. Guys, the 17 points that we scored in the first quarter against OKC, we knew that was problematic. Tonight, it's the second quarter with 19 points against New Orleans. So, Drew, the question I really have for you is, what's the threshold, the minimum threshold that the Wizards need to score per quarter to keep themselves in games, to make themselves have an opportunity for a victory?
28 plus. That's been a number I've been seeing for the Wizards. It's been a solid number, enough for them to be in the game, whether they're making mistakes on the defensive end or they're locking in defensively. And with those numbers, that's plenty enough to win a ball game. But around 28 points, right at around there. Now, if you start getting into the 30s, you can't give up 30s like tonight. The first quarter, you had 37 points, but you gave up 35. Third quarter, you had 32 points, but you gave up 32. So if you're going to be in these ball games where you're scoring at a high clip and turn the ball over, that's going to put extra pressure on your defense on the other end. So you got to come up with the timely stops.
You know, we talked about it during the broadcast, guys, and I want to get your take on this too. Scoring is up at a high rate, almost historical numbers league-wide. So if you're scoring 19 points in a quarter, that's not good in this league anymore. Like Drew said it, you might have to get into that 35 realm to think about giving yourself a chance. But again, if you turn the basketball over, it doesn't matter how many points you're scoring.
Yeah, 24 is not enough anymore in this league.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think at 28, right around that is just a perfect amount, because if you're going 37 to 19, that's such a disparity out there. If you have some more consistency, that's where you put pressures on teams to go out there and, hey, if you're not going to stop us, we're going to continue to score. But on the defensive end, they were doing their job. It's just, it's difficult against the Pelicans team when you're turning the basketball over and over and over. You're not going to give yourself an opportunity to win many games. I
appreciate that, guys. Chris and Drew, of course, we're glad to see you guys back in town. Chris, go enjoy the rest of your birthday night. We'll see you both on Wednesday when the Chicago Bulls come to town again.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
As always, I want to bring in Megan McPeak. We see her courtside as well. Megan, the same question goes to you about tonight. What did you see that the Wizards needed to improve on most to try to work out a victory that obviously did not happen tonight?
Well, Chris and Drew talked about, obviously, the turnovers. That's a big thing. For me, it's also keeping them off the offensive glass. And obviously, Jonas Valanciunas is a force to be reckoned with, much like what we've seen when we've gone up against Memphis, dealing with Steven Adams. But at the end of the day, this team has proven that they are ready and willing and able to rebound the basketball and get out and run, especially on the defensive end. And I talked with Ryan Lumpkin at halftime and asked him point blank, how do you keep them off of the offensive glass? How can you clean that up? And that's something that was part of the scouting report coming into this game. And it's something that they allowed this Pelicans team to continue to do, especially those second chance opportunities. You can, if you're going to give up an opportunity on the offensive end, if you're going to give up that offensive rebound, you cannot, one, give them a bucket, and then two, also put them at the free throw line for an and one opportunity. So if it's not going to be turnovers, you've got to clean up the offensive glass for the opposing team. You've got to limit their second chance opportunities. I thought the Pelicans had an abundance of that tonight.
You know what's interesting, too? I'm looking at Daniel Gafford tonight. He had 13 points, Megan. Gave you 4 boards. There was a time in the game we saw him dealing with a little bit of pain in the elbow, and we'll talk about that later on. But what do you think about his matchup inside? Because as you mentioned, Valanciunas, you got Jokic, Embiid, the Joker, and Steven Adams. These are some really big physical men inside. What can Daniel Gafford do to try to find that next gear to try to deal with these guys who probably outweigh him by at least 15 to 20 pounds?
Yeah, I thought what Drew was saying throughout the broadcast, and he really hit it home, especially in that first half, was meeting JV at that free throw line at the very latest. Even try to get him above the break or around the three-point line. If you can meet him early and get your work done there, then it gives you a better chance to not, one, obviously get the foul called, because we saw that he got into foul trouble tonight. And that's something he's been able to remain out of over the last couple of games. So if you meet him early and make him physical, make him have to work to be able to get position and tire him out, it puts you at a better chance of not picking up the foul, because he's already tired for having to work for position. But also, too, in doing that, you're pushing him out of the way that he wants to go. You're not not allowing him to get where he wants to go. You're not allowing him to sit down, put his butt in the low post, and get position on you. So the earlier you can meet a guy of that size and strength, the better position it puts yourself in defensively to, one, get an angle, but two, you're making it harder for him to try to get that offensive work done.
Sticks, I wish.
Hold on.
What?
That was great analysis from a guard right there
Hey,
about
Sticks.
big man opportunities. But
In my defense, what people don't realize, I ended my career playing as a point guard. I started my career. I've been this size since I was like 7 years old.
You know that. You know.
I have played every position.
You know, Megan.
What I was taught at an early age, when I was like 8, 9, 10, from my AAU coach, meet them early and do the work early, and you don't have to then put yourself in a worse position. So that's how I know how to at least meet them above the break.
Well, I'm going to add a layer to that, Sticks. How do you do so and protect yourself? Daniel Gafford with the elbow. We've seen it happen a couple of times where we get caught up in a rebound scrum and guys yank the ball, and we've seen him favoring that elbow. How do you defend against bigger guys and at the same time protect yourself?
So this is a very intricate detail about the game. You want to watch the film. You want to make sure that you put yourself in the best possible way to succeed. In the film, you got to make contact with him early in transition, running with him, hit him at the free throw line, and not necessarily just go out there and forearm shiver and check him and get a foul, but make contact with his body. Don't let him see free space out there. And then when a person of Valanciunas doesn't have the ball, do your work early, knowing that the shot is going to go up, because he is so good at trying to go out there and make sure that the shot is going up. He's going to rebound position. He's going to push you out of the way. No, early, even that half second before he goes for that rebound, you got to make contact with him, because if he makes contact first, you've lost the battle. As a big, you want to take up space. You don't want to give up space, because if you do that, you're already cooked.
That's what we do not want. But you know what? As we're breaking down the big guys inside, I want to also talk about a guy who gave you his 14th double-double of the season. Just keeps racking them up. I'm talking about the unicorn, Megan. What's your assessment of his performance tonight? Because he still hit 3 for 5 from deep, still gave you 23 points, still gave you 10 rebounds. But again, in a loss, it's kind of one of those things that you almost forget about, because we've kind of grown accustomed to him giving us double-doubles on the daily.
Yeah, the interesting thing I found about KP this evening is I have never seen him more frustrated with an opposing team. And it wasn't so much a Jonas Valanciunas or a Larry Nance that was frustrating him. It was actually the guards. There was a couple times where Jose Alvarado was able to get in there and disrupt him, and KP, was wanting a foul called because he was getting shoved a lot from behind, which as a big, especially as a footer, as Sticks knows, when you're getting shoved from a smaller player in the mid to low back, that can cause problems. Keep in mind, KP has been dealing with back soreness throughout this early going of the season, so you want to also keep an eye on that. It's not so much his frustration, at least in my opinion, was that the foul was happening or that the smaller guys were doing it. It was the fact that the officials were not looking for it, even though he was going to them and talking to them. It was the unawareness from that standpoint, I think, that was really frustrating him. But I think tonight was the most I've seen KP frustrated by an opposing defense. But the fact that he could still play through it and still give you a double-double, albeit in a loss, I can imagine that can be frustrating, but he continues to be consistent on a nightly basis, which is positive.
Indeed, and it's this one of those things that they're all going to be holding on to the lessons learned from this game, because again, we will be seeing New Orleans again. So this story is not over. We're merely halfway through it. But speaking of, holding tight right now, because we're going to have head coach Wes Hall Jr. coming up on the other side of the break, and taking a look at East Baltimore's own Will Barton. As a matter of fact, here's just a snippet of what you'll see here in a moment on Wizards Postgame Live.